Welcome back to Framed by James. I'm your host, James, an ABO certified optician, and today I'm going to teach you how to pick the best glasses if you've got a big head. Before we get into how to pick glasses for your big brain, I want to review the simplified steps to picking a good frame, regardless of the size of your head. First, always start with the prescription, because things like a high prescription or a multifocal lens design will guide us to the type of frame that will suit us best. Now, side note, if you have a high prescription, which I classify as higher than plus or minus 4 diopters, then watch my other video regarding picking frames if you have a high prescription before you watch this one, and then come back to this video. Once we take a look at the prescription, the second step is to look at the fit of the frame. Now I'm talking about the measurements of the face and the measurements of the frame. That's what we're going to focus on in this video. Third and finally, once we've looked at those first two things, we can then look at the style. We're talking about things like shape and color of the frame, but that comes last. Now, if you have a large noggin, then you're probably no stranger to the struggle of finding frames that fit you without squeezing the ever-living daylights out of your skull. You have the opposite problem as me. I have a baby head, but the struggle is related, even if it's inversely related. So, assuming you have a prescription that is not too high, let's look at the frame measurements that you should be aware of when picking the right frame for yourself. Now, most standard frames will have 3 numbers listed on the frame that signify 3 different measurements that correlate with measurements of the face. The first number on the frame is the eye size, meaning the width of each lens in millimeters, this distance here. This is oftentimes used as a standalone number to signify the size of the entire frame, even though it's only part of the picture of frame measurements. So generally speaking, a larger frame size for men would be 57 millimeters and above. And for women, 55 millimeters and above is going to be a larger frame. Now in most cases, the larger that number is, the wider the frame will be. That isn't always the case though, so don't take that as gospel truth, but as a general rule, if you want a frame, or you're going to want a frame with an eye size in the upper 50s and into the 60s as far as millimeters is concerned. Now the second number on the frame is the bridge measurement, or DBL. That stands for distance between the lenses. This measurement can also be a little bit deceiving, but an average bridge size is about 18 or 19 millimeters. Now if your eyes are wider apart, then look for a bridge size in the 20s, and for narrower eyes, look for something 18 millimeters and below if possible. The key is to trying to get your eyes centered horizontally in the lens as close as possible, something like this, somewhere around here. Now one thing you should be aware of is the position of the bridge in relation to the lenses. If your bridge is high and wide or wide, then look for a frame whose bridge connects the lens at a higher point, like this one. Inversely, if you have a low bridge or a small bridge, then frames with a lower bridge location would work best. And the reason for this is because a low bridge point in the glasses will hold the lenses higher, like this. So if you have a high bridge, then the lenses are held too high because it's connecting right here and your eyes end up being positioned too low in the lens. The last number on the frame denotes the length of the temples or arms of the frame. For bigger heads, you're likely going to want a frame that is at least 145 millimeters, probably more like 150 millimeters on the temple length. Although with different styles of temple, that also plays a role. For example, Oakley frames have straight back temples that are not meant to wrap around the ear, so they just hug the head. So in that case, you might be able to get away with something with a smaller temple, something like 140 millimeters or shorter. But generally speaking, in most cases, you're going to want something with a larger temple size, 145 millimeters or above, in order to fit the length of your head. Now let's put all of this together and pick some frames for today's celebrity. Introducing our big-headed star, the wonderfully talented Benedict Cumberbatch. Now what I'm about to show you can't be unseen, so if you don't want your perception of Benedict Cumberbatch to change, then maybe skip this part. So this is a screenshot from the movie Avengers Infinity War. The squares that I put around Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr.'s heads are the same size. Now, if this isn't enough to demonstrate how big Benedict's head is, here are some other pictures of him wearing glasses that are clearly too small for him. Notice how the bend of the temples doesn't bend around the ear. It bends a little bit too early. So that frame ends up being held up too high on the ears, tilting the frame forward or downward in the front. Now, part of this could be an adjustment issue, but I think it's more likely that the length of the temple is just too short for his needs. To pick some frames that fit better for Benedict, let's take a quick closer look at Benedict's face. Okay, here we have Benedict Cumberbatch. Let's start with his nose bridge, signified by the blue line. Looks to be slightly higher than the eye line, but seems to be a pretty normal width. Maybe slightly wide, but not too wide. The next line, the green line, signifies the pupillary distance, or the distance between his eyes, which is large, but in relation to the face width, or the head size, signified by the red line, that seems to be a normal ratio there. So just overall a big head, but the ratio between distance between the eyes and the face width is normal there. The bottom line with Benedict is that he has a very large head, and he's going to need a large frame that's going to fit him right. I'm going to show you a few frames that could work better for him, but before I do that, I wanted to show you a picture of him wearing some frames that I do feel like work really well for him. Now, personally, I'm not usually a very big fan of tinted lenses, and in this case, it could be that these lenses are truly only meant to be sunglasses, but at any rate, I am a big fan of this style for him, tinted lenses and all. It just works well. I'll make mention as well that if you have a large head, depending on your prescription, picking a sunglasses frame instead of an ophthalmic or clear lensed frame, and putting prescription lenses in it, clear or not, tinted or not, that could be an excellent option for you. Just by virtue of what they are made to do, which is to block the sun and to block a lot of it. Sunglasses tend to naturally be bigger in size, thus more likely to fit more comfortably for you. So doing something like this and putting clear lenses in it instead of sunglasses could be a good option. For now, with Benedict, we aren't going to go the route of sunglasses, so let me present a few potentially great frames for Benedict Cumberbatch. So here we have frame number 1. This is the Allen J AJ132. Measurements on this one are a 57 eye size, a 19 bridge, and a 150 temple. This one, American made, or at least American designed, with global components. Another frame that could work for him is the Allen J AJ116. This one, a little bit wider on the eyes. We're talking 60 millimeters on each eye, and then a 17 bridge, and also a 150 temple here as well. So different shape, more rectangular, and that could be one that could work for him as well. And the last one that I picked for Benedict is the Prada 54T. Now this one's a metal frame, so it's got nose pads, but it also has 150 millimeter temples, a 57 eye size, and a 19 bridge. So just a different style, but these are all options that could work for him based off the measurements of his face and what he needs as far as the size of the frame is concerned. Because we have already seen pictures of Benedict with temples that are too short, I specifically picked frames with 150 millimeter temples, but even those might be a little bit too short for him. The hope in all of this would be that one of these frames fits his face better. It also gives him the clearest vision in the lenses because the eyes will sit in the optimal spot in the lens. And the hope, of course, is that it provides him with a comfort and style that fits him. Benedict Cumberbatch, you've been framed by James. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was educational and useful for you. I've got more videos that teach the art and science of frame selection, so like this video, subscribe to my channel, Framed by James, and learn more about how to pick frames that not only look great, but also allow you to see great. And as always, my friends, remember to see the good.